now, another informative video from the NASA archives.
One more question online, and then we'll do in the audience. Go ahead, Cedro.
Next question. What do you think the next step in timeline should be for human space exploration, and is the current plan viable?
So what do you think the next step in human exploration is going to be, and do you think this current plan is viable?
I definitely have an opinion about that as time is going on. And what that's related to is the people today are talking about landing on Mars. It was Elon Musk, you're going to take a bunch, 1,000 people there and let them set up life and things like that. I think a lot of the suggestions about what should be next comes from how successful the push has been in the past. People don't seem to be keeping up with the relative costs about it and what the difference in priorities now is. For example, Apollo 7, excuse me, not Apollo 7, Apollo, the entire Apollo program. That was a $20 billion program that got approved. And because we weren't 100% efficient, that program really cost $25 billion. $25 billion back then, today, is equivalent to about $150 billion. So when they talk about doing something out there, they need to understand that we have to be able to address those costs. Or, and this is one of the places where I've got a positive on some of the computer systems that are going on today, they can accomplish some of those things on computers, which is a lot cheaper. But they're talking, I think a lot of the drive today is behind somebody's emotional thoughts about it. And when they're talking about landing on Mars, some people say in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Believe me, it's going to be some decades before we land on Mars. And when they talk about going to Mars today, they're talking about it based on how good our operations with spacecraft are today. I don't even hear them discuss all of the obstacles in being able to go do that. Secondly, since the Apollo program, they started exploring Mars, landing unmanned vehicles on there. And in my opinion, we now know so much more about Mars than we ever knew about the moon when we went to the moon. And so I think eventually egos will enter it, including my egos on some of these things, and they're going to go on to get man to land on Mars. But believe me, it's not where we're going to move humans when they're wiping out the Earth. It's going to be a place where you just continue to do some research out at the end, out at the edge of it, on doing that. So I guess there is a plus with doing this, computerizing these things compared with doing it. And we'll be going to the moon and doing some work, but I think it'll be a long time before we set up human-operated facilities on Mars.
Just one thought to add to that. I think sustainability is probably the key word. We've got a plan now, NASA and international cooperation, commercial input, a lot of that. I think we need to learn how to move around in deep space. One day we're going to need to for some reason. And I think anything we can do to get that sustainability, like the Gateway, possibly at the moon, would be one step in that direction. But we've got to get it a little more routine so that it's not so much an event as it is a capability, an infrastructure. And so to me, what what we're doing now is trying to take a step, and we're short of money, there's no doubt about that, trying to take a step at building that infrastructure so that we can get in and out of space all the time and be able to go deeper and be able to stay there for a while. I don't care where it is, somewhere. And I've got a little different philosophy point on it. I think one day we may, and it's maybe 5,000 years from now, but we may have to get off this planet. Not because of global warming or anything like that. We just may use it up. And I think we need to learn how to move around out there so that we have some options. And I think the course we're on, well, I wish we had more money and could do it a little faster and a little better cadence. It's just not happening right now. But you guys are struggling through it pretty well. So I think there is a need to go deep, and we got to learn how to do that.
Well, I think the next logical step is going back to the moon, and you can learn an awful lot about living and working in space beyond Earth orbit on the moon. And if you have a problem, you're only 3 days away from the Earth, and you can learn and really understand how you can operate on Mars, learn that on the moon. And we need to develop systems that have long lives, because you'll need systems that are dependable and reliable, that can operate for long periods of time if you go to Mars. So the moon is really the next logical step, and that's a good training ground for the going beyond that. But also it's very interesting scientifically. So there's a real benefit to going back to the moon, and that's really the next logical step.
Good, thank you. All right.